like it's exciting at its best. Steve, from Premier Property Analysis, right?
Yes.
This podcast is brought to you by Premier Property Analysis. You just hit a lifetime PR.
Yeah, he did good. Nice job.
Yeah, 54 years.
Yeah, he got after it.
First one yet. So, listen, I want to open our first B.Strong Season 2, Episode 1. The Strength Legends of the Beast here with Carl Seeker and Marty Grove. We've been talking all afternoon. One, I can't thank you guys enough for coming out and really helping these young guys train. I mean that. And two, I'm excited to have the conversations because we keep out there. I kept being like, Marty, wait for it on the podcast because you guys, the legend. Yeah. Literally, you guys are the bookkeepers of powerlifting in the Bradford area, Warren area, the Northeast. And so, Carl, we're here promoting your show, The Beast of the Northeast, on March 13th in Lewis Run here in Bradford, Pennsylvania. It's been going since 1984.
Yes, yep. 1984 was the first year. Yeah, and the first year we started off as the Stroh's Power Day, and it was the Stroh's Day for first 3 years. And then I had moved to Warren, got married and moved to Warren, and then we changed it to the Beast of the Northeast.
And that's been the Beast of the Northeast now since 1987 then?
Yes, yep.
So it put us at 35th year?
Yes.
35th years?
Yep, and I came up with the name Beast of the Northeast because back then, do you remember Georgetown basketball, Patrick Ewing?
Yeah.
They used to call them the Beast of the East. So I was watching the basketball game, and I'm like, you know what, that'd be a cool meat name. Beast of the East, but I didn't want to copy that, so I put the Northeast on there to put the twist on it, but that's where the name came up.
Patrick Ewing, the sweatiest basketball player alive. That's what people have said that I sweat like Patrick Ewing before. So that was what he was known for back then. But it was the Beast of the Northeast. So for 37 years, you guys have been promoting strength in this area around here.
Yep.
Right.
And before we were, I'm going to look at Marty. I think in 1990 we started the summer meet. We did like 3 or 4 of those for the Italian festival.
Yeah.
We called it the Summer Beast.
And it was crazy.
My first show ever lifting was the Summer Beast. In fact, I have a trophy that I want to see if you can tell what year it was and what it was exactly to see because you're a sculpturist, right?
Yes, sculptures by Seeker.
You've also created trophies for every powerlifting strongman meet from here until
Oh gosh, yeah. We've taken them all the way up into Canada, all the way down to Florida.
The coolest trophies of all time.
Yes,
hands
thank
down.
you.
I think that's true. That's not just saying it. Everyone wants your trophies. It was the first show I ever promoted. We came to you and loaded up. I don't know how many of them, 50 or 60 of those trophies, and people love it. People do a show just because of your trophies.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, and I'll tell you an interesting story about the Summer Beast if you want me to.
Oh, yeah.
The Summer Beast started off, Marty had called me, and I'm going to let Marty take it from there with how we got into that, because he'd called me like one morning and everything else, but Marty is the one that got the Summer Beast rolling.
And Marty, let me push this in for you first, because we're sitting with Marty Grove and Carl Seeger here. Marty is one of the strength czars of Bradford, has been around, we want to hear the original Iron Mill stories, a guy that was one of my mentors growing up, and just
mine too.
peers, and just as you saw today, what base of knowledge consulting with these kids to have, and all of you two looking at their deadlifts, because that's just all of those years and all of those generations and all of those mantras put into one. So to have you two come together and unite for this is important, because I think the amount of information that you guys know in the area is second to none. I think to put that out there is important. So we got Marty Grove and Carl Seeker. Let's hear the legends of the Beast, the Summer Beast.
Yeah. We'll start with the summer, then we'll go into the big one.
The Summer Beast is when we'll first start back in '83. This is. I was living on Linwood Avenue. I had rotator cuff surgery, and I always lifted weights, but didn't know what I was doing. And I had, and it didn't work out well. I still couldn't lift. So back in that time, my idol was Fred Hatfield. He's a powerlifter. He's
Right.
Dr. Squat, they called him.
Yeah.
And
Was he the first 2,000?
He was
Squat?
No,
Or
he wasn't the first. Lee
wasn't the
Moran was the
first?
first
Lee Moran,
1,000.
yeah.
Fred eventually did the 1,000, but he wasn't the first.
Yeah, the most famous, one of the
But
most famous.
he held the world record in the 198s. He did 826, I believe it was. And at 220, he had 881.
Right.
And that's back when the gear was not like it was today.
Right.
The equipment.
It was gym socks and an ace bandage.
Yeah.
That was geared
Pretty
lifting
much.
back then. Yeah.
At the time, all our information came from Powerlifting USA. We got that magazine once a month.
Right.
But I had seen it where Fred had rotator cuff surgery and was coming back, and he was successful, benching over 500. And I'm like, now what am I doing wrong?
How old were you at the time, Marty?
I was
when you started?
20. I had started lifting when I was 15. I started the powerlifting with probably 22, 23.
So you had some years of development underneath you. Had the torn rotator
I had
cuff,
lifting,
and then
but then I decided to do the powerlifting. But my shoulders were my one shoulder was shot. Same shoulder, 2 surgeries. But I eventually got a hold of Fred Hatfield and said, "How did you get your shoulders? How did you fix your shoulder like that where you could bench 500 pounds?" He said, "Well, I'll tell you." He said, "Rotator cuff surgery is very delicate." This is back in the 80s now. He said, "That's back when a baseball pitcher, if they had rotator cuff surgery, hit or miss, whether they're going to come back."
Before Tommy John's, before they had that technique.
So he said, there's a surgeon out in Wisconsin named Dr. William Clancy. He's the best in the world right now. That's who did my surgery. He said, if you're serious about powerlifting, I'll call out there and recommend you. You call out there. That's what we did. We worked together. I called out to Wisconsin. I made an appointment. I sent x-rays. I flew to Wisconsin, had rotator cuff surgery. I was out there 3 days, flew back, did not do any rehab in the hospital, did all at home through Fred Hatfield and myself, and came back to eventually bench press 446 in competition, the best I'd ever done.
So that's a story I've never heard. So an interesting point of how powerlifting seed was planted around here was through Fred Hatfield's surgeon and surgery through you. And so we talk about it a lot. I think we have to do 2 eras: pre-social media and pre-everything that you could get information everywhere, and post. Because there are 2 different eras of lifting. So how did you get a hold? How did you guys interact with Fred before social media? You just DM him right to him.
Fred worked for Joe Weider. He was editor-in-chief at Joe Weider, Muscle and Fitness at the time. And I don't know how I even got the number to Fred, but I did. And I got a hold of him and talked to him. And that's where it all started. Then after the surgery, I would talk to him and say, "Fred, this is what I'm feeling." And I said, "I still feel that pain in there, Fred. It's not feeling right." He said, "I'll tell you what you got to do. He said, you got scar tissue in there and you got to get it broken up, my friend."
Yeah.
He said, "I want you to lay on the table. I want you to have somebody big and strong to take you and hold you down, hold your scapula down, and take your shoulder, your arm above your head, and push it down. You're going to hear it all rip loose." He said, "If I was you, I'd take some Advil."
And no one except if you've been a powerlifter or a strength athlete knows how true that is. It is just that grinding, clicking. It's just all that arthritis / calcified deposits in there.
He said,
it is exactly that.
If you don't get your range of motion back, your strength will never come back. He said, number 1 is range of motion.
That's the biggest problem with that surgery is frozen shoulder syndrome.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
And if you don't have your range of motion, you'll never get your strength. He said, get your range of motion first.
Yep.
He said, you should be able to throw a baseball. When you get your range of motion back in a football, no problem. Lo and behold, I broke up that scar tissue, and he had a book on it. It was called P&F stretching. I've never heard of it. He had wrote it's called proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation exercises, stretching.
Nailed that one, Mark.
He said,
We're sounding smart all of a
He sent me
sudden.
the book. He said, do this every day before you work out.
Yeah, that's
20
awesome.
minutes. And I'm going to tell you something, my shoulders felt like they had the oil joints in them.
We were just talking about our warm-ups and how important it is. And do you still carry some of that today?
I'm 64 years old. I warm up for 30 minutes.
Are you 64?
I'll be 64
That's
next
amazing.
month.
I put that was 57. The
57
photo.
there.
I'll flash that up when we're doing
cut
it.
up there, yeah.
Yeah. So people have their ideas on how we all train, but when you're 57 with results like that,
Well, you have to evolve.
Proof's in the pudding a little bit.
Yeah, you have to evolve as you get older and change your training because of injuries. But
right.
Getting back to Fred, that's how. So my shoulder started to heal, and I had a garage down Linwood Avenue. And I said to Mark Klein, and I said, there's this thing called powerlifting where they squat, they bench, and they deadlift in one day at a meet. And Mark was a runner, a basketball player. He played football, but he never lifted weights.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. So at the time, he was living up on South Avenue, way up on South Avenue, almost to DeGolia. He'd run down, work out, and run home. I said, Mark, maybe we should cut the running out a little bit. But anyway, that's how it started.
And that was powerlifting in this area. And
That's
then
how it started, my garage. And then
you two linked up. How did you two link up?
Carl?
Yeah, Carl and you, Mark.
Let me tell you,
Okay.
so one more part of the story. Joey Spears was in the. I grew up beside Joey Spears out in Custer City. He was just a little kid when I was growing up in high school. He was in the Marine Corps, and he had wrote me a letter and said, "I heard you and Mark Klein are powerlifting. I want to powerlift when I get home." He wrote me letter after letter after letter, and lo and behold, he got out of the Marines. It was Mark, myself, and Joe down in my little garage.
Joe lives 3 houses down from me right now.
Yeah,
on William Street.
So at the time, I said, let's put a weight room in my garage. It was a garage. It was like 20 by 20. We had a squat rack. We had the basics.
Yeah.
We started lifting and getting strong, and all of a sudden people were calling. Can I come down and work out with you guys? What's going on down there? You guys are doing this and doing that. And so in the wintertime, I had no heat. So what we would do, we would take the weights down to the Y. In the wintertime, they didn't have enough weight for us down there. So we'd take all our weights to the Y. That's how I met Carl. Now, Carl was trying
Right down
to
here, the Y down, right downtown in Bradford.
Carl was trying to lose weight at the time. He was heavy. Remember, Carl was he was fat.
Yep.
We'd come in, he'd have 4 or 5 sweatshirts on, all bundled up, sweating, trying to get skinny.
Sauna suit.
Right? That's it.
So we started working out, started talking, and eventually one thing led to another, and he started powerlifting.
What year was that, you think? What time period was that?
I did my first meet 1982 at bench meet at the Bradford Y. As a matter of fact,
but
it was just a little rinky-dink, just members only meet and everything else. And then Marty started coming down to the Y, and then interest started building at the Y.
Right.
It was
early 80s, mid 80s down there.
83.
83.
The timing is everything in life. At that time, it just took off. People heard that we were doing 500 and 600 pound squats and 400 pound benches. They couldn't believe it. They wanted to train with us. So I'd have people coming down, hey, can I work out with you guys? And what's going on down there? And this is another story. We've been on the Y. On Friday nights, we go down at 5 o'clock. That was our squat and deadlift night. And at that night at the Y was family night. That's where the parents would bring their kids to swim.
Yeah.
And they'd sit out there behind the glass and watch their kids swim for 2 hours.
Yep.
Well, where were the parents at?
Yeah.
They got wind of what we were doing, and there'd be like 15, 20 parents in the weight room watching us squat 600, 700 pounds.
Yeah.
Taking pictures.
Yeah.
And I've had people today from back then say, I'll never forget watching you guys. It was the greatest thing. People had never seen that kind of thing before.
Around here, so that's obviously
They had
that's so
never
interesting,
seen that
right?
kind of strength.
Because that's where that's where it gets started. Why
That's
people
how
are
it
interested,
started.
because it's not just a few people. It was a whole community that was interested in the
They were
strength.
wa-
And it was from those Y. You
then
think it
we-
was from those Y workouts where you were? It
They
has
started
to be.
watching.
Yeah,
And
there's
they
no
said,
YouTube to go
what are
to. You
these
had to
guys
find that.
doing?
Where do you find that
well,
stuff?
They never saw guys squatting 700 pounds when the plates loaded out to here.
Yeah.
And then
And when you feel that, not only when you see it, but when you feel that in the presence of that, and you see how much intensity goes into that, that's what
we got together, and then when we started the Beast, I talked to Carl about the Summer Beast. So we tried having a Italian festival on a Saturday afternoon, like noon, 10 o'clock in the morning or something.
Well, what happened is
They had no room for us.
Yeah,
They said,
Marty got me in touch with the gentleman that was running it, and they came to Marty about it, and they gave us 9 o'clock in the morning, a Saturday morning, and we were the first ones, and our first time we had 1 hour.
Yeah.
All they gave us because we were so new, they didn't know.
Yeah.
So we punched it out. There was like 20 lifters, and we did it.
So you did
And,
a full meet at 9 o'clock in the morning at a time
just
festival
bench
in 1
dead,
hour.
bench
Yeah,
dead.
well, we
Bench,
just
bench
did.
dead, yeah.
First year was just deadlift.
Yeah, just deadlift.
Because
Yeah.
they only gave us an hour, but we became so popular.
well,
They came back
we
to
stole
Marty.
the show.
Yeah.
But then the next year we came back, they gave us what, noon or 1 o'clock?
Next year they wanted us. They wanted us at 1 o'clock because that's their biggest
Their
time
biggest
on a
time, yeah.
Saturday.
They had bands, they had people over here. Everybody was around the powerlifting.
Yep.
Even if you weren't interested in lifting, people were interested to watch what was going on, the weight that was being moved. That's how it started.
Yeah.
That's how people got wind of it. I mean, it wasn't.
I never had any clue to all that. Yeah.
People, like I said, people would watch that never even lifted weights. They'd say, "What?
Yeah.
Well, these guys are moving some weights. Unbelievable!" And they liked it. And that's.
Well, what an odd cyclical nature to when you and I, all those years later, without even knowing, to do it at the Italian festival down there when you were the head judge,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
what an interesting, I had no idea any of that was a history.
I always say today,
Zero that,
if we could pull it off, if we could have a big bench meet down there on a Saturday night with big benchers coming in, paying them,
Oh, my goodness.
you would have
Thousands of
a
people.
crowd of thousands of people
Yeah.
watching. I mean, it would be just the biggest, and it would be a rush because you could put the platform up and line it off where people could come right around the platform, just so the judges could judge and everybody could think.
Right.
It would be a rush because people are interested in. They're interested in that kind of stuff, even if they're not interested in it. You see what I'm saying?
Well, yes, I remember when we pulled the fire truck and all that. So I'm going to have.
Yes.
I'm not to.
But that was you had a big
But
crowd.
I'm saying the interest in that. They were lining the roofs of it. People really
crazy.
wanted to see
Well,
it. People were excited about it.
The second year, they had put us behind the Tops building where there used to be the street there, and they let us put our platform up. And I remember we had to get dressed in the gym over across the street.
St. Bernard's.
St. Bernard's, yeah.
And the meet started, and I was pulling about 700 then, and I couldn't get to the platform. There was too many people, and I couldn't get through. So 2 police officers just pushed the way through to get me to the platform. And everything else, but it was that packed. But they got me to the platform, and then it got crazy.
Electric. Same. Same. I've seen it down there. Yeah.
So that's how Carl and I hooked up. And then we stayed at my house down on Linwood Avenue for probably 5 or 6 years. And Mark Klein said, I'm going to build a house out South Avenue. I'm going to put a full basement in. He goes, let's put the weight room down there. I said, okay. So Joey Spears, myself, and Mark Klein, we lifted probably for 10 years straight and didn't miss a workout, the 3 of us. Tight as tight can be. But not only that, we're all tight. Everybody was tight that lifted. We partied together. We picnicked together. We went out together. We drank together. It was like a family.
We sweat and bled together.
And the more people that got involved, the more people were tight. Everybody. Then Carl, he'd be delivering trophies and stuff, and he started meeting people from all over and saying, I have Gary Heisey coming up to the Beast. Well, Gary Heisey was a world record deadlift holder at the time. He was on the cover of Powerlifting USA. He held the world record.
925.
925 total?
Yeah, about 30 years.
925 deadlift.
Deadlift.
Yep.
Just deadlift.
How long did you hold it, Carl?
About 30 years.
Yeah. He came up and he lifted at the Beast. It was his comeback meet. He had gotten hurt. He had torn his bicep. And we got to be friends with him, and it's just like...
And that was 925 before everybody was doing 925.
Absolutely.
People don't understand now.
That was raw,
it's
925.
Right. Back then on different bars and different... Yeah,
that was no
just
special bar.
Yeah,
was just
right.
a belt. He
Different than
pulled
right now, because everyone, they feel... You see on YouTube, everyone's doing 925. Back then, that was an accomplishment that was absolutely
stood on
elite.
its own.
So
elite.
we just met so many... And as we got to go to these meets, we went down to South Jersey for one of our first powerlifting meets.
Yeah.
And we met people. We met more people. We met more people. I mean, and we just... And I tell people this, too. At the time, there was no social media. There was no YouTube. We didn't know what we were doing.
Phone
we
call.
were just lifting.
Yeah.
We were just lifting and going...
All the
hard.
information happened at training. Like just today when you guys were talking, just a share of information. That's what I think people forget what the strength community is. It's not the views on YouTube and the views on Instagram. It's the being here and having that information. To have those kids be able to come off that deadlift platform and Carl be like, hey, put your toes out just a little bit. Hey, and you saw the result of that.
Right.
That's invaluable, and that's how that culture at that time was built.
These kids today, and I tell them all the time, when we were doing this, nobody told us what to do. There was no YouTube, no social media. We were hit or miss. We'd experiment with something. So we probably wasted 10 years of work. We worked out hard, but wasted workouts.
Right.
You're not doing the exact, this is what's going to build this, and this is what's going to do this, this is what's going to do this.
Right.
Where now you have that.
You couldn't go to Elite Fitness. You couldn't go to powerlifting.com.
Couldn't do it.
Or whatever. Yeah,
These kids had
bodybuilding.com.
No strength coaches back then.
Yeah, no, there was nobody moonlighting as strength coaches.
No.
You couldn't go to and say, hey,
and
you know
if they
what?
were a strength coach, they were a strength coach.
Yeah.
It wasn't no bullshit stuff like, hey, I watch videos and...
Yeah, it was it was a guy that you wouldn't want to run into in the street.
300 and I'm going to tell you how to bench.
Right.
None of that.
But
I went to one meet and I went to the Northeast in 2017 and now I'm a strength coach.
Yes.
Everybody's a
like,
strength coach.
yeah,
Everybody's knows.
Yep.
But
Right.
these kids today, I tell them, all the kids that'll say, can I train with you? And I'll say, look, I'm not. I said, here's the way I am. I'm old school. I'm not gonna. Don't waste my time.
Yeah.
I know how you have to train to get what you got to be. I know what I'm doing, but these kids have it at the tip of their fingers now. If they want to be great, or good or better or great at something,
Right.
They have the information. There's people out there.
And so,
that'll
what's the
help them.
denominator? Because I know the exact same answer. I know your answer too. What's the denominator of why they're not? If they have all the information and they have all of that,
They're lazy.
right? Not lazy.
lazy.
The want's not the
And
intensity, and the want's
I'm not
not
trying to
there.
be rude,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean they're not bad kids.
Right.
But there's no work ethic.
No desire.
Right.
There's no work ethic.
Lazy
No
is
desire.
tough word to use, but the work ethic and discipline, they just don't.
don't
Not
have it.
only that, but they don't know. They never had
they
the
don't
they never had
understand.
the generations of guys above them
No,
teaching
wasn't
them
installed
that.
They
in
don't
them.
understand.
It has to be installed. That's a
Yes.
great word to say.
We
You
had-
have to learn that.
Yes, at an early age.
You got to remember when we were working out doing these heavy lifts, Mark Klein was working in the oil fields all day long, hard.
As pipe yard.
Yeah.
Coming down and working out like that.
Right.
People, a kid now can't even go through go through a day's work
Right.
without make it. They'll quit.
Right.
So
work it up. You know, a lot of these
find-
kids now are coming in before school, which is important, but only 2 or 3 of them. They don't understand success is that it's after the oil field day, it's after the pipe yard days, it's before school. It's everybody now has that level of information, like we were saying out there. If everyone can get to here because of just that good information, what gets you to that next level? And that's the
and I'll tell you what started me was Mike Culligan in high school, the gym teacher.
It's a name that resonates with me. I mean, Mike was my coach. Yeah, he installed that in me.
He told me one time, he's like, "Hey, Seeker, you gotta get your fat ass down in the weight room here tonight." And I went down. My first workout, I puked. I couldn't stop puking, and then I couldn't walk for a week. Yeah. And but he just kept talking to me and brought me back in and
it's crazy to me how cyclical it is. Because I wrote a paper on Mike in college, and he was my high school coach, and he had that thing where he could just bring it out of you.
Yes.
He didn't like me, he didn't dislike me, but he could bring it. He could get out of me. You know, he was just like he knew my potential, and he demanded that I did it. Yeah, Pomeroy too. Don't even get me started on Pomeroy.
But here's the thing. Yeah. Here's the thing with those guys. They were not only teachers. They taught you a little bit about life too. And that's what a good coach does.
Yes,
100%.
Pomeroy was, people. God rest his soul. But people would badmouth Pomeroy. He never did us wrong. He let us use that gym for the beast
for free.
And he'd help clean up. He'd help set up. But he was one of those guys that I met along the way in your life. You meet people in your life that you always remember, and they always did something for your life. He was one.
Yeah.
Mr. Palmer was one.
We didn't talk about this beforehand, and just a quick story. Palmer, when I was in 9th grade, I threw something in the lunch room. He pulled me out by the back of my neck and said, "You're going to eat lunch with me for 2 weeks." And every day he sat here and told me this shit. Yeah. Every day he sat here and said, "You need to be out of that group. You need to not do what those kids are doing. You need to stop messing around with that girl. You need to get." He's like, "Lou, you have something, and all that is work ethic." I wasn't big or anything like that.
Same thing with me.
100%. And those guys,
cared.
Jerry Patterson did it for me too. Plucked me out and said, "I'm going to be the one to show you down." And that's we didn't talk about this beforehand, but the whole idea of the strength community is that mentorship.
Yes.
Bring it down into. Without that, which is what a lot of these kids are missing. Yes. How does that get it installed? Your word. How does that get disseminated down? We didn't know. We didn't talk about Mike Culligan or Pomeroy. Those two, if I was going to name two in my, those guys took me under their wings and said, Mike would let me go down in the weight room and say, "I know you're supposed to be on study hall, but you're going to be down here studying film." Period. And he's like, "Go down. Here's the key. Get down there. Grab a soda and watch film."
Yep.
That's what you're doing.
Me go down and lift during my study hall.
Right. You're not smoking. You're not. Yeah. They would open the locker room. Yep. The shop teachers, because that's where the back in the day, that's where it was. They would say, "You can't. Could you turn the music down? I've heard Metallica enough." Be like, "Sorry." Turn it down. But those two exact gentlemen are what installed it in me. So that's
same with me.
So interesting. That's the pedigree of how it went.
Yes.
And the odd part about Iron Mill, and Marty, I talked about this, I didn't learn that discipline until I'm sitting there lifting it, and I'm like, dude, everyone in here is strong. Yeah. Everyone in here is busting their ass. Everyone in here is stronger than me. And that's what allowed me to be like, you know what, to learn that discipline and lifting.
Well, and what it becomes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I truly believe this with my whole heart, this becomes a positive addiction. I mean, it does. I mean, if you think about that wording, everybody's got some type of addiction in your life, but it becomes a positive addiction, and like you have to go, you have to do this, and like Marty said, he's his age. I'm 58. I started at 15, the same age.
Same thing, 15. I was 15.
Well, yep.
And how strong were you at 15? Because I think people think that everyone. Yeah.
I probably weighed 220 and I couldn't bench 135.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Mike Culligan took me. Was it Mike Culligan that took you in the weight room?
Yes. Yep.
Holy shit. We lived in for football. So I want to see how much you guys can do 135. He probably did that for 20 years, 30 years straight.
Oh, yeah. And he's the same thing. I mean,
he was like, "Lou, you're too big and not strong enough." I was like, I did 135 for like 1. The kids were doing it for 8, 9, and 10. And I was like, man, there's a correlation. And he was like, "Lou, you're just not strong enough for your size."
Yep.
Just flatly put it to me. You got to train to get stronger.
Same with me. Yep.
How crazy.
He was nice about it, but it was to the fact.
Yeah.
Because I think he was a smart enough gentleman where he didn't want to shame you, but knew this guy's got something. I can keep bringing him back. And it's just the way he handled you. I mean, firm and strict and straight to the point. And wasn't an ass about his approach or anything else. Didn't shame you. Say, "Hey, you fat piece of
No.
Like, hey, listen. You got some potential. You need to work on it. I want you in here."
Do you know why it was the esteem of his voice that said this? Because he was holding esteem, and so when he said, "Hey, you're close, man," that's all you needed. Somebody with lesser esteem or at that point.
And his body stature, that guy was in shape.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I was in high school, he was jacked with big guns and a big
Was
chest.
he?
And
See,
everything else.
we caught him
was
right
in
before he
shape.
died, but yeah.
Yeah.
But so there's a reason why his face hangs on the stadium down there, and I didn't
Yes.
realize that we have that sort of connection. Not only did we have it through almost, Marty and you guys passed that to the generation of Havlins and the Costellos
Yes.
and Sean Lewis, who I saw his name. I never met Sean Lewis until I was 25. When his name hung on the wall, like it was, like his numbers stood down there at that, whatever the records were at that time. 405 bench press, 600-pound deadlift. Like that was legend to me. That was a legend that came from you guys and that generation in the early 80s, mid 80s, starting at the Y down here, doing the swimming, having the parents come watch you because they couldn't find it anywhere else. And then, where was the Beast at that time, the late 80s?
The first year we had it in '84 was at Pitt Bradford, and there was a little incident that happened that we didn't get invited back. But Ed Pomeroy.
What was the incident?
The incident was.
Tore the yard up.
Yeah.
Trying to get equipment out of there.
Yeah, I won't say any names or anything else, but they put a bunch of weights in the back of my truck, and I only had a 2-wheel drive truck, and it was in March, and you know how the grass is and everything else, and it was a new facility.
Yeah.
Well, when I started pulling out, I started tearing it up, and Mike Langenes Pink, God bless his soul, sponsored us. He bought us trophies, and I had about $400 or $500 back in the '80s, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Damage was done, and he paid for it and got it fixed. And everything else, but we were never invited back. But then where Marty picks up is Ed Pomeroy got a hold of it and
Never charged us a dime.
didn't charge us, but we donated back. Mike Pink was good enough to I don't need the money,
So Mr. Pomeroy held it at his school. How did he handle that? What was his?
He just said,
he
just tell me
handled
what you need.
Wow.
Yep, he got it all
We got the
approved.
gym for you. He goes, we're gonna,
Yep.
we'll put the stuff down on the floor. He did all that, and he helped us clean up, and he didn't want a dime, but we gave him money. And
we donated the first 5 years. We donated $5,000 back the first 5 years to the weight room.
Wow.
From the Beast, and that's how we started it. Is
probably lifted on those same weights, those same bars, because they were probably about 20 years old by the time we got there. It was old stuff. So the same benches and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll tell you how bad the benches were. Marty had just had shoulder surgery, and he went to roll the bar out a little bit to get it over him, and the lip was so bad on it, it come down, cracked him on the shoulder.
that was my 440 that day. I was getting the bar in place, and I was trying to move it. I didn't realize it didn't have a little lip on it. It rolled right off, hit right on my chest. I laid there. I said, Joey Spears, get this effing bar off me. And I benched it. I was embarrassed.
The spotters weren't ready because he was setting up.
I was just getting set up and boom, hit me in the chest.
No lip on the right hand side.
Black and blew me right here, and I still.
I had my next door neighbor was Jim Dunn growing up, and he was good friends with Joey Spears, and he told me the Joe Spears story. So I don't know if this is true or not, but it was
true.
We can tell you, man.
right. So he said that they were all out there one time, wherever, probably Klein's garage or wherever like that. He said at squat rack that Joe had drank like a case of beer and squatted. Somebody
Summer
bet him.
Beast.
Was it? Somebody bet he couldn't squat 405 for 10. Was that
did.
you?
It was me.
The story was about you?
It was me and Joe.
Holy shit! Yeah.
we're
And he
down
said
to-
he shit his pants
we
and
were
did
down
it.
to Billy Lane's.
Is that real?
We were at the Summer,
Dude, that is
we were
so
at the
funny.
Summer Beast.
That is
Summer
amazing.
Beast was the Billy Lanes. Now he'd have the Summer Beast at the Billy Lanes outside, volleyball
Yeah.
courts.
Yep.
And
That was my first beast. My first beast was down there. Yeah.
Joey was
my first
drinking, and I said, you can't squat 405 for 10. He had jeans on. He goes, the hell I can't. We took the weights back to Kleiners. He put 405, didn't warm up, and he ripped his jeans out, did 405 rock bottom, 10 good reps.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell another story about Joey Spears.
Did he shit his pants or no? Was that okay?
No.
That's what I heard. Is that
No,
so?
but he
Either
did-
way, that's an impressive.
I mean, I wouldn't put it
405
past
to the
him.
ground. Right.
Strong kid.
He was
strong.
strong. I've seen one
Yeah.
meet.
Probably one of the
meet
most
down
natural,
States.
strongest.
You're right.
We went to States one meet, and Joey was weighing around 170, 175. I don't know.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Trying to get to
175,
180, trying to get to
178.
181. He was eating, but he couldn't
Yep.
get the. So we ride down in that one car. Myself, Mark Klein. He rides down with Timmy Myers, and we get there, and Timmy Myers says Timmy Myers is trying to cut weight now. He's trying
Yeah.
to.
He was trying to make
He's trying
165.
to get to the weight class.
Timmy's one of my favorite Iron
So
Man
Joey
guys.
gets out.
Yeah.
Joey
He's
gets
going to be on
out
the
of-
next one. 35 years he's done your show.
Joey gets out of the car and says, I just took 3 Lasix. I said, why are you taking Lasix?
One's bad enough.
You're
Right.
trying to gain weight. What are you taking Lasix for? Timmy took a couple. I said, well, Timmy's trying to lose weight. You're trying to gain weight. I said, what's wrong with you? I don't know. So Joe weighs 69 pounds or something that day. He squats 600, benches 400, and deadlifts 600.
Was that raw or is that geared?
He had gear.
He had
gear, but not
But
like-
Right.
The benchers
geared
back
back
then
then,
were
right.
like wearing a tube sock.
Right. 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
And another story about Joey Spears is when we were down in we have so many stories and it goes so. We were in my garage lifting, and his dad would come down and watch. His dad was as nuts as he was, but his dad was 45 years old.
Yeah.
At the time, we were in our 20s. We thought he's an old man.
You're right.
Well, his dad would watch. He'd come down and watch. And his dad started doing a little lifting, doing a little benching, do a little. His dad benched like 350.
Yeah.
Pulled 550.
Respectable
Got
lifts.
into it and started doing it with us. And,
Yeah.
But the thing with Joey and his dad, they always fought. So we were out at the Connors one day and we were working out. And his dad was spotting him, and Joe says, "Dad, not how you're not spotting me, right? They got in a fist fight. They're fist fighting all the way down the driveway." But anyway,
Yeah, I can tell you 2 more good ones about that, Joe. The one was we were at Penn State and we were going into a meet, and his dad was with us, and his dad was walking right beside me. All of a sudden, somebody comes flying off the top of a car, puts him in a headlock, and bulldogs him. And it was Joe had run up to the back of somebody's car, dove off the top of the roof, bulldogged his dad to the ground, and yelled, "And are we allowed to swear?"
Yeah.
He goes to him, "Get in saw, you fat fuck," and puts him in a headlock and pulls him to the ground, gets right up, just walks by. We're all standing there like, what the hell just happened? His old man's like, "I get him."
I won't speak
So-
to Joe's sanity, but his friends say he's got the touch screw loose, right?
Well, I'll tell
in
you.
the best of
brother,
ways,
I
not
will-
the
I will-
worst ways,
well,
the best of ways.
I hope he doesn't get too mad at me because I love Joe. Again, tons of respect for him. Most
Yeah.
natural, gifted athlete I
one of
ever
the strongest
saw.
guys around.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now.
I have one of my questions is who is the legend, like the legends of strength around here, and some of the things we've seen. So we don't have to do that now, but if
Yep.
you want, so Joe,
Yeah,
so
no,
you're
we'll
one
go
of
into that.
one of yours is like
Joe would be
one of the
mine.
strongest
Yeah.
guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'll tell
Natural
you
strong guys. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
but his first meet, Marty had been corresponding with him, and he got back from the service. Our first meet, we go to Slippery Rock University.
Mm-hmm.
So they're telling the rules. So they wanted to have a little fun with Joe, and they're telling him like, "Hey, when you bench, you got to have 1 foot up." Joe's like, "Well, when the fuck did this rule come in?" Next thing we see, Joe's by the garbage can, throwing up in the garbage can, and
Oh, he goes first. He said, "I'm a Marine. I don't get nervous. I'm a Marine. I don't get nervous." But Joe was he was one of the best training partners I ever had because
Yes,
he was
tons of
there
respect.
through thick and thin.
Yeah.
And
tons of respect.
My
if
mom
you
makes
told him
cookies
to
now.
do-
They come down and talk to them. I love seeing Joe.
Yeah, great guy.
if you told him to do, we're going to do 100 sets today, he'd say, "Okay, we're going to do 100
Well, he'd
sets."
do 105.
You know what I'm saying?
You need somebody like that in
And
the
he's
crew.
that
You need
strong.
somebody that's just that.
He was
yeah.
that strong.
Yeah.
I don't care. He was that
Yep.
strong.
So what would you think some of his max lifts were without, exaggerated,
I
unexaggerated,
don't-
tail, not
yeah.
tail? What was he at that time in that
You know,
period?
it's hard to say because he's gone up through the weight classes and stuff. I know he was up near a 500-pound bench.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Only guy, and I don't know how he could do it. And this is where I give him more credit and stuff. Would wear his freaking bench shirt to the meet. Like most guys don't put it on until 10 minutes before they,
He walks in with a bench shirt on.
He'd be
uncomfortable
wearing
bench
it.
shirts.
He'd be wearing it the whole meet. He would weigh in and put the bench shirt on and be like, "Joe,
those
you got
those
your bench shirt on."
uncomfortable ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the very first
He's like,
piece I did in 2002.
well,
I
he'd
think I'm
say, "I
pretty
do
sure
better
he's
when
with
it's
his shirt
warm."
on, standing there, yeah, all day.
Put it
Doesn't-
underneath the hairdryer. Heated up that way. But God bless him. I mean, yeah,
Right.
I think that's, yeah.
Because to me, like, so my generation was Mike Havlin. If I had to say
Mike
one,
was strong.
is Mike
Yeah.
not? I mean, maybe it was just the way it was, but to me,
Yeah.
Mike was one of the strong.
No, and he had the
Sean
build,
and
too.
Mike were, yeah.
Yeah, there's some guys that had the build. You know what I mean? Jeff Snyder, another big bencher. Marcus Coulter, huge bencher.
Yeah.
Timmy
know,
Myers,
Marcus.
great deadlift.
Timmy Myers.
Timmy Myers is a legend.
He's right. Well, so I'm gonna have
His
Tim on the next
longevity.
one. He doesn't know it yet, but him and
He's a
Sean
legend.
are my next United
Still,
on here.
For as long as he's been lifting,
35 years he's pulled 5. He came in here last year at this exact time getting ready for the meet. He said his hip was whatever, his
Yeah,
hamstring.
he just
He's
had knee
like,
replacement.
I pulled 535 years in a row. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no one's listening to you about deadlift. There's more longevity. There's more. No matter what you have, and like that type of information is
Yeah,
an
now
encyclopedia of it.
Now here's another one. It was myself, Mark, Klein, and Joe. And Timmy was at that time. Timmy Myers was just starting to get into part of it. He was down in Williamsport going to school, so he would correspond a little bit too. So he was down there where we he was one of the original ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
started. And
Yeah. Tim and I used to go to meets all the time. Like, back then we didn't know any better. I would do like 12, 13 meets a year.
Yeah.
I pretty much became a trophy hunter for a while and everything. So
Which is how everybody learns, right?
yeah,
That's how
and
you
that's pretty much
accumulate
why
that knowledge,
I did
right?
it. You
Right.
know, didn't do a whole lot of squat meets. I really didn't get into squat meets as much as Marty and those guys did. I was more a push-pull guy.
Me too.
And everything else. And but yeah, I mean, Tim and I would do numerous meets and everything else. And Joe did too there for a while. He was doing quite a few as well.
Yeah.
And then there's some other guys too that you don't hear about. But
Chris Phillips was strong. Chris
Chip
Phillips.
Camilla.
Yeah.
Chip was
Holy
strong.
shit.
Chip.
That kid was.
Chip's done a bunch to help us
Chris
out.
Phillips.
I mean, Chris is
Another
basically one of my
500-pound
brother.
bencher.
Like his mom and my mom are best friends. His benching, He used to Timmy would be pushing me deadlift and Chris would be pushing me benching, and those the iron mill when I first was accustomed to iron mill.
Yeah,
so they would both come down there and both
Yeah.
strong. I went to the IPA. I didn't do the IPA nationals down there in New York, but I went down there and watched them compete with Tim and Chris down there.
And I can just go back to my generation, but like when I was in high school, a kid named Jeff Pasquarello, another strong kid. Chip Camillo, we were all the same age and stuff, and those guys were much stronger than I was in high school. But Chip went to football, I believe, and then I just hooked up with Marty, and Marty started pushing us into powerlifting, and we've gotten way off the track, and I'll try to bring it back around a little bit if that's all right. But what had happened is we had gone to a meet in Brockway or Brockport, whatever, Brookville. I'm sorry. We went to a bench meet in Brookville. While we were down there talking, and we kept saying, like, we can do this. Why don't we have a meet?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
Ron Hogan had ran a meet, and it was like and I'm not picking on Ron. Ron ran for what he wanted to do and everything else. He started a meet before anybody else did here. And it was
so Hoagie down here was the first guy to promote a meet down here.
He had one in 1983, and it was a shit little meet. Yeah. But it met its purpose.
Sparked something, right?
Sparked interest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I say, for some reason, that people that aren't even interested will watch it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just especially if big weights are being moved.
And you present it right.
Yeah.
So a meat promoter, a lot of thing I hate is to say bad meat promoters that don't understand how to do it, how to keep things moving. Like your meats have always kept them moving.
Oh yeah.
Your first one, if I would have had a bad experience that first one, which I didn't, I had a good one. Who knows what after that? But because that was such a good experience for me, outside of the back of Billy Lane's, you could be like, hey, I want to do another one.
We went to a full power meet down in York, and I think it was a full power meet. And Mark Klein, we started at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Mark Klein did his last deadlift at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. There's not a more boring meet on earth than those nationals down there.
I was the last deadlifter, 2:30 in the morning.
In the morning.
Didn't even stick around for my trophy. I went to bed.
And was there an atmosphere down there? Because every time I go down there, there's not an atmosphere. Nope. It's just long. It was brutal.
It was blah.
The first full meet we went to was down in Jersey, South Jersey, right?
South Jersey Barbell.
And it was.
Yep. First time I met a guy named Ricky Dotson.
Ricky Dotson.
Freaking guy, 220 squatting like 700 back then, and this is like 1984.
Yeah, he was squatting 770.
Right.
Yeah. But he was a big lifter. But anyway, there was over 100 lifters. Squat, bench, deadlift, and it was hot.
Yeah.
And Carl.
This is an awful story, but it's the truth.
There's people all over the gym. They had these big huge,
barn farms.
Big
barn fans.
Yeah.
So Carl's getting ready to deadlift, and he's putting powder on his legs. This big guy's like 275, and he's jacked.
Ripped.
Carl puts the powder on his leg, and it blows all over this guy. This guy's covered with powder. So he didn't say too much. I just said, Carl said sorry, but I said to his friend, I said, what's he weigh? He goes, he's 275. He had a vein going on his arm. It was just
looked
big.
like rope.
Yeah.
He was 198 last year. I said, no, but this is, we're a little bit naive. He was 198.
Yeah.
He's 275 of shredded muscle.
Yeah.
He goes, you eat a lot of bananas. I said, okay.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
And
I had gotten, at that meet, that was over 100 lifters, I had gotten the best squatter of the meet that meet. That was my first meet.
Yeah. What does that do for you, having that
very
first one?
first meet, I squatted 620. I never had the meet,
Right.
And, so it's, and I'm very critical of squat. If somebody tells me they squat 500 or 600, I really don't believe them unless it's in a meet because they're not going deep enough.
Yeah.
You got to break parallel. There's a big difference between 3/4 of the way and not going down breaking parallel. Big difference.
And you saw a lot of these athletes in here today when they were doing 405 a couple, like last year and stuff like that. But 405 with bad form compared to good forms, a light year away when you're doing it the right way and benching. Because they all do that. Everyone comes down, bangs it off their chest, throws it up. I'm like, listen, guys, subtract 50 pounds off your bench press and then shoot for that number because that's different.
You get stronger, you're just going to tear a pack.
Right. Yeah. And not only that, but you're not training that low last 2 inches of a bench press. That's where that pec tear comes from. Having had 2 of them, like having been through elbow surgeries and all that stuff. So
well, look at this. It's a sport where you're going to get hurt. Like I tell people, people tell me,
it's not a matter of
you
if,
regret
it's
what
when.
you did, and I said, well, you know what? Anything you do at a high level, I don't care if you're running marathons. If you're racing a race car around a track at 200 miles an hour, you're going to eventually wreck.
Right.
Powerlifting is the same thing. You're going flesh against steel. Something's going to give eventually because you're going to keep pushing the limit, the envelope.
Right.
And how many surgeries have you had, Carl?
22.
22.
I've had 20.
22. Yeah.
From powerlifting.
Right.
So you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
It's just part of the game. But you if you love the sport, that's just
It's funny because I don't think I love powerlifting like you guys do. I respect it, and I think it's the basis. I tell these guys, and I just wrote a thing about it yesterday. If you're trying to make a 4-cylinder car go to a 6-cylinder car, you better powerlift. You got to start pulling on some heavy weights.
Yes.
You got to try. Is it the best thing for a basketball athlete? No. Is it the best thing to make you faster? No.
Yep.
But if you want your body to grow and you want to become muscular and you want that kid to go from 170 to 220, then you have to do certain things like that.
Yep.
But
gotta have that strength in the trenches.
And these kids here that are here today, you think, back in my day, if somebody would have come and said, hey, somebody knew what they were doing, said, I want you to come and I'll show you how to work out. You work out with me.
Yeah.
I'd have been there an hour early at the store.
Well, so those kids you saw in here today, they're those kids.
But
That's a good group. You got a good.
Oh, yeah.
You should have people waiting at the door, the kids to get in.
You'd think so. We'd hope
think,
so.
I want to play football. I want to get bigger. I want to get stronger. And I know you know what you're doing, so
Yeah.
help me. It's not like that anymore.
My story, and I know you and Mike have a really great partnership / their thing. Mike said he pulled me out of the Y and said, "You're going to the pro leagues now. Quit with the amateurs. Show up tomorrow at 7 o'clock. If you're not there, I'm never asking you again." Bang. And that's every day I'm there. Okay, Mike. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he would bench he would bench me into the ground. But it was it took a year of that to learn how strong to get. What it took.
Kids wanted to ask. We come out to climbers and work out with you guys. We'd say fine, and we didn't really. And we didn't care how strong they were. But if they had heart, and they kept coming and coming back and coming back, they were one of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how strong you are. Just don't quit.
Right.
Don't go through a hard workout and not see you for 3. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't have any time for that. I don't. And I'm old school, and I watch these kids today how they're coddled, and I'm not trying to be.
Yeah.
But
They're not being installed with the work ethic and discipline, and that's where you and I agree.
that's not. And that's not just weightlifting. It's just life ain't easy.
Life in general.
Right.
Life's not easy.
Which is my big point, to segue it all together, which we're getting to, is when you teach somebody that, like the sport of powerlifting, right, there may be injuries in the end of it if you're trying to excel at it. There may be a time in the morning you have to get up, or there may be whatever. But what you learn from it, if you can take the discipline from that and the attitude, which is what I tell these young. I've been working years on these kids. The attitude that was given to me, obviously from Culligan, obviously from Pomeroy, obviously filtered down through you guys, obviously filtered down through. I'm a product of that, and now these kids are getting that down through there. But there's been parents that have castrated guys like Marty and me for saying we're yelling at the kids, we're too hard. When anybody who's part of these programs knows it's exactly like you just said, Marty. I don't expect anything besides your hardest effort. I don't care if you deadlift 700 pounds. I don't give it. No, in fact, most guys don't. Yeah. I love that you come in here and you saw Steve Feldman, who promoted how many of the meets, through you guys, right? Down and they're like 54 years old, first one. Oh, a lifetime PR.
Here's the thing.
Stan Gleason, 315 PR. He can deadlift 135 for 5.
Yep.
And
Still grinding.
Yeah.
Most kids will tell you they want it, but they really don't want it.
Right.
You'll find out real quick how bad they want it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're bad kids. It's just not.
They don't want
and
to
I
do
come
work.
around and tell the parents. I'll say it's not for them.
Yeah.
Maybe football's not for them. It's not for everybody. Football's a nutty sport. It's a hurt sport. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean your kid's not a good kid. It's not for everybody to want to do that. It's.
I learned that from coaching the youth leagues, because a lot of 10-year-olds just want to take the picture with their helmet on and their shoulder pads. Yeah. When you take an underdeveloped 8-year-old and an overdeveloped 10-year-old, watch what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
It's horrible to watch that kid go through that. You're like, little Jimmy, he's a good cornerback, but I don't think he's going to be able to take that, toss sweep every time, because he's getting his, it's hard for him.
I'm all about heart. I'm all about if somebody keeps coming back, and here's the thing: it's easy to be good when things are going well. Mm-hmm. Now go get hurt, tear your shoulder up, and have to come back. Tear your knee up and have to try to come back. It takes perseverance. It takes.
And anybody who lives in America knows you're built up to get cut down. It's the redemptive story that matters.
Yes.
Well,
anybody who's been in America for more than 20 years and grown up in here knows they're gonna, no matter how high you get, they're gonna cut you down. It's the redemptive story that matters.
Coddling these kids with it. Here's the thing in life: you're gonna be told no. You're gonna be told in life no more than you are yes.
Right.
And that's the way it is. And it's a good story. I'm all about heart and hard work, and a kid, be as good as you can be.
Right.
Right. Doesn't matter if it's.
Right.
Whatever it is. It could be your marriage, it could be a relationship, it could be work, it could be school, right? Very seldom, there's only 5% of the people that are willing to put the work in to be great. 5% to be great. They don't realize. I'll give you a story about Jerry Rice. This is a true story. Jerry Rice, Steve Young inducted him in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He was talking about after he won the Super Bowl. He said they had partied, they'd been up all night, they flew back to Candlestick Park. He said, I went back to the stadium the next day to clean out my locker. I walked out on the field just to sit down and reflect on what we just accomplished. What did I see? Jerry Rice was running the sprints.
Right.
getting ready for the next year already. After he just won the Super Bowl, the best receiver in football will still go giving it.
That's why critics will say he's considered one of the best football players.
Absolutely.
Like one of the, not,
But
if not the
anyway,
all-time greatest, not the
just a
Tom and
story
stuff like
you
that.
have
but-
to. And here's the thing too. I tell this to my daughter. She'll say they hurt my grandson's wrestle. She says, how can I make them tougher? How can they're spoon-fed?
Right.
It's hard to make them tougher now. They're spoon-fed.
Yeah.
You're trying to give them a better life, which you are, but they're spoiled. They're not. You watch these guys, the Mike Tysons and stuff that come out of the streets. They're hungry.
Yeah.
They're hungry to succeed.
Yeah.
And they're hungry for a better life.
They felt the worst.
If there's no need for a better life, there's no need for work.
And right now, that's where these kids are at because they're at home. They're not having to go to school. There's not standard anything being held to them. They don't have to do extracurricular. And I'll tell you one thing: it's not the kids' fault because they want it. There's not an institution. There's not a mentorship program. There's not a community that's out there to say, hey, this is where you come to find that. I don't know how else to tell you. You know, like we used to find it riding our bikes up and down Rue Hill. You know, like that's like for traveling down here. Like I'd come down to Rue Hill and hit Callahan and ride back. That's where I found it. You know, like. Do you want to come down and do that or not?
It's different.
So and that's with with the community here with powerlifting and with you guys in strength. Where do you again we're here promoting Carl Seeker's March 13th Beast of the Northeast. This is the 37th year, 37th straight year of what we're celebrating as power around here, and that's what we're here to do is promote that sort of strength back in the community because it's been lost. There's a really big disconnect right now, as any teacher will tell you, just in the way attitudes are and stuff like that. And so if you're speaking to those parents or those kids right now that you saw out there, what do you say to them, Carl, about strength and what that does for your lifestyle?
Strength comes from within. Like, you gotta want to do it and put the work into it and everything. That's what I tell a lot of guys and everything else. But a lot of times I won't approach people anymore about it. Like, I let them come to me, and then kind of like Marty says, I call them 2-weekers. I give them 2 weeks, and I know if that 2 weeks it's going to make or break. Because everybody knows it's sitting around this, and everybody's listening to this. Your first day in the gym, you're going to be sore. So those guys that all right,
brutal sore.
Yes,
to your bones.
And it's not the next day.
No, it's not
the
fun.
next day. It's 2 days later where you're walking like Frankenstein and you can't take a shit because you can't find the toilet. That type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then those guys that show up and you tell them, like, give it 2 weeks. It'll get a little bit better and better after the 2 weeks and stuff. But you can just see it after that and. You can just tell when talking to somebody. If they're asking questions and not just doing what you're telling them, but if they're asking questions and they stand a chance because they want to know, they want to learn, they're just not going to do it because you tell them. So I always look for that too, like when I'm working with some of the guys. I'll be brutally honest, I really don't work with people a whole lot
Neither do I.
and everything.
For that reason.
Right.
Yep. And I call them as assholes. That's what I call them because they ask, but they don't do what you
Well, and
what
because you own S&C Power Plant in Warren,
Yes.
right? And that's on the Facebook, and that's S&C Power Plant on
Yes.
Facebook.
Yes.
Right. So you said how many members do you have over there in Warren?
We start off with about 48, and we're up to 145 now. And people are leaving are leaving like your YMCA's, and this is just our experience. They're leaving like their YMCA's, their Anytime Fitnesses, because they want a gym.
Right.
They don't want like the fancy thing and stuff. I think people want to get back to the basics and the harder core and everything else. Just somebody has to show them.
Right.
Noticing
the same thing here. That it's almost like fast food. What they thought they were getting in Anytime Fitness and the why. It is to promote S&C Power Plant and Iron Mill and the way we do it, but it's that community style, almost platoon, like the family that you get into.
Yes.
That's what we loved about it. That's what I fell in love with the Iron Mill whole thing and why. I mean, literally, it imprinted in my brain.
Yes.
Like, oh, I like that. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to make my living.
Yes.
Literally. And so when you find that, not that everyone has to do that, but that's what the bread and butter is of lifting. That's what the whole thing is. Exactly how you guys are talking about.
Agreed.
Traveling together, eating together, sharing those stories, which is just a community based around strength. And that's so.
Yes.
So with S&C Power Plant, what kind of community do you guys have?
It's more in Pennsylvania. It's a community like Bradford. I think it may be just a little bit bigger, but I'm not sure. But pretty much, the same situation. Really not a whole lot for the kids and everything else. And so we've tried to go back after we started off with like the older group, the hardcore people started coming in. And then pretty soon, like, the word of mouth started getting out, and people are like, kind of like what Marty said. What do you mean there's a guy down there, like, used to deadlift 750 pounds, And then people are saying, like, well, the owner was a power lifter, and he, won some world championships and had some good luck, and, when the time was right, he cashed in.
Yeah.
So they want to come down and meet this guy, and that guy is me. And they come down, and then they want to start learning and stuff. And like, you know, we start talking with them, start working with them, and like, well, nobody's teaching me this stuff. Where like, get my Planet Fitness or my Y, it's all Instagram and everything else.
Right.
Or you know, and
instead of trying to get strong, they want to be famous, which,
yes,
which most kids want.
That's it. They don't want to put the work in. They want their 15 minutes of fame, but they don't want the 2 hours it took to get to that 15 minutes.
Right.
So you know, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And
isn't it hard to instill in people to say, listen, because it's not the old school. I'm finding myself more relatable to the old school guys than the younger guys. I mean, we get along all around. But to me, it's like I nail in their mindset. It is like eating empty calories. You don't understand that that's not the feeling, and what you get from that, posting it and feeling it, isn't what you get from today hitting a lifetime PR. Because Carl came in there, told you to point your toes out, told you to bring your hand in, and then you had a bunch of guys, 10 guys in here, who are all your peers or mentors, saying, "Hey, nice job, man."
Or another perfect example today. One kid quit.
Yeah.
One kid quit.
Yes.
What I
You
say.
know.
You hear me, Tom?
Yeah.
It's don't effing quit.
Yeah.
He looked at me like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
And they'll never quit.
Right, and his name was Ryan Hughes, and I don't mind saying his name. We got Alex Liner, is a great high school kid. That was Ryan Hughes, who's going to Alfred State. You have Kyle Hartman, Caleb. Their names need to be mentioned because they're the young guys too.
Oh, and they're grinders.
And what happened to Ryan afterwards?
Yeah,
He said, "Dude, get your head right, step back in, and come back," and he hits it.
Smoked it.
I'm old. Like I said, there was. I can remember watching when we would squat, Mark Klein squat, and he would do every rep would be as hard as the first one.
Yep.
Like you wouldn't think he'd do 10.
Right.
He would never ever quit.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
Yep. He wouldn't quit.
Just a grinder.
Kill me first.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? That's why I said this kid.
Yeah.
Good kid. I just said, don't ever quit.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, it's just.
And and ad nauseum, we've talked about the culture of Bradford sports, which is something we share, Marty and stuff like that. And these kids, and they that's why they're feeding off this right now, because they're getting that culture of winning, of standard. You know, we say that I'm a Steelers fan. The standard's the standard. Like, you come in here and you have to do that. And for you to say that to him, if not for any other reason, then I'm so glad you guys came in to have that. But that experience for him, be like, hey, that's what Marty used to do to me.
Well, and I'm going to bring it back to the meet, if that's all right.
No, please do.
So, to piggyback off what you're talking about, so these guys will be going to the meet here March 13th, and they're going to go in and they're going to see this environment. And I'll go back a little bit about the Beast. Like, we had met, and it was Marty, Mark Klein, myself, and Mike Langenese Pink, and we decided we were going to do this meet. Didn't have a name up until like 2 months out. And back then, you couldn't post on Facebook your meet or anything else. You had to get it out there by word of mouth.
Gyms. Going to gyms, traveling.
Gyms.
Yeah.
We were going to Lockport, New York.
You were promoting the
gyms,
sculptures.
Geary.
You had all that. You had You were the conduit for how that got out, right?
And we knew nobody.
Right.
I mean, we knew nobody our first meet. It was just us, some guys from Olean, a couple guys from Jamestown and Fredonia.
Yeah.
Our first Beast, we had about 26 lifters, 27.
Yeah.
We moved it, started running it at Bradford, and we started getting up into the 60s and 70s, and lifters. And word of mouth started getting out. We started getting some bigger names into the meets. We were the first meet in the area, and guys won't even know what we're talking about because it's so outdated. But there used to be a way you ran a meet, and it was called, it was just called the conventional way. So say maybe you open up with a 400 bench, you go to 410, you're the only guy in between, you go next.
Yeah.
So you get a 2 or 3 minute break to go out. So we took it, and a guy named Todd Monroe from the Columbus area came and taught us how to do the round system.
Right.
So he's teaching us this, and we're learning right there at the table that
on the
day.
spot, right?
He is teaching us,
right,
and everything else. So we're put the round system. So we were one of the first meets in the area to go round system. We were still going to big meets in Clearfield Power Days that had been established longer than us, and they're still using that conventional method. We're like, this is how grandpa is this? This is so old-fashioned.
Say, round system. What's a round system? Then when you showed them how simple it was,
right?
Just when you're going, boom, 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 boom,
right?
Boom, boom, boom.
You know when you're going.
And so describe the round system for everybody who's in powerlifting. So on March 13th, if you come to this lift, we want everybody to come out to this Warren area, Bradford area. If you're around here, you want to watch power. What I love about your meets, music going. You got the dragon in the background. That's what it is.
Oh yeah,
the atmosphere is why you come to powerlifting. This is the atmosphere to come to.
Yep, and
you're a good announcer.
This year. Yep, we started the round system, and the round system is pretty much like maybe the first weight's 100, and you do a flight. So you may have 5 flights of 10 lifters. So your first weight's 100, your last weight's 200. So the first one goes with 100, everybody does their first lifts, then we drop the bar back down to maybe like 110.
Right.
Everybody does their second lifts. So it gives you like that 8 to 10 minute break, like what you should be.
Right.
With the conventional system, you might only get 2 or 3 minute break. And how can you succeed with a 2 or 3 minutes? You trained 5 months for a meet and you get a 3 minute break before you go again.
Right.
No, this way it's like you know when you're going.
Well, it takes
Keeps
you know, they say at
organized.
least 5 minutes for your central nervous system to reset anyway. So
Yes,
at least
well,
somewhere
and
beside
the other
that.
nice thing is it speeds the meet up. So I'm not stopping the meet for 3 or 4 minutes waiting for this guy to
Right.
declare, because he gets 1 minute to declare his next lift, then he gets 3 minutes before he has to take it if he follows himself. This way, in that 4 or 5 minutes, I just punched out 5 people
Right.
the other way. So it speeds up your meets and everything else.
And I caught yours right at frets when those frets meets were enormous, and that's
Oh,
when
yeah.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was just dabbling in it, just looking at it in
We
high
could do
school.
what? How many benches? Maybe 70 benches. Now I'm on.
Yeah, we could do them, punch them out in 3 hours, 3.5.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
and
what,
our
you know, that's know what you're doing. Get loading,
Right.
spot and go. Loading,
Yep.
spot and go.
Which is the most important in any meet of the loaders. Those guys
Yes.
are the hardest
Well,
working
well,
guys in
there's a
any
And
meet.
the guy
Yeah.
the guy with the weights. You gotta get the right weights.
Right. Yeah.
I've only had a couple misloads, really.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
be you gotta be on your game if you're watching the load, because
Right.
people get sloppy, they get tired.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It is a lot of work in those meets.
Yes.
Those
Because
meets.
Yes.
Who's the best helper you ever had? Or you know,
the best helper I've
Yeah.
ever had? Gosh, there's been so many.
weight loaders. I know for strongman because you're loading those 400-pound stones.
Yeah.
Some of the shout outs to those guys are without those guys moving that
I'll
weight.
tell you a big thing is like this, we talked about the loading, but that Julius Maddox breaking the world record on ESPN, they misloaded the bar.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Oh, Hafthor?
No,
Oh, no.
when Julius Maddox broke the
about
record
5
for 800-pound
Yeah.
raw bench.
Oh, I didn't know.
First
5 months
800-pound
ago.
raw
Oh, was
bench.
it?
Yeah.
They finally get it
On
on ESPN
ESPN.
because the COVID and there's not a lot of other things to show. They get it on ESPN. He gets out there and almost throws him up. They misloaded it.
Yeah.
How do you do that on live?
On a world record.
national-
And
Yeah.
it wasn't a little bit, it was 100 pounds.
100
Yeah.
pounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Tear his
he
shoulder
came
up.
back last week or 2 weeks ago and benched the
782. Just broke his world
I
record.
can't believe the weights
Raw.
they're doing.
He
Raw,
did
right?
780. Just did 782 last week. He's
Smoked
gonna go
it.
800. Smoked 780.
Does that make
Smoked
any
it.
sense to be able to bench press raw 770
Well, and I would
pounds?
tell you,
To
if,
me,
if we want to go down some history, I never thought in my life I would see guys bench pressing more than guys deadlifting. Did anybody ever think you'd see guys benching 1,100?
Yeah.
And guys are only deadlifting 1,050.
Right.
It's like, what the hell happened? I mean,
well, Marty and I were
you
talking
know,
about because there is I'm on the outside. I like it all, just the strength
Mm-hmm.
sports. But technical lifting, the technical lifting of geared lifting is way different than raw
Yes.
lifting. Like so, it's almost like
Yes.
a monster truck style. A lot of guys hate on that, but to put a shirt on and to put 1,100 pounds on your chest, good luck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Good
One
luck
of
not
the-
respecting
One of the
that.
most famous quotes I ever read was Louis Simmons talking about, "Hey, I got a bench shirt and a bottle of Vanadrol sitting back there on a bench. Bench shirt still hasn't benched 400 on it. So it takes somebody in that shirt doing the work,
Hard
putting in
work, yeah. Having those
and
triceps
learning
strong, those tendons
technique.
strong, right,
Hell,
so-
we at the Beast had a first. We had a guy bench in a duct tape. Zane McCaslin
Yeah.
made a bench shirt out of duct tape and freaking bench 700.
What?
It's just the show.
Out of duct
He
tape?
But he was. That's basically what they're doing now. Is they're reinforcing those
Yeah.
shirts with
Yeah, the slingshots.
slingshots and
Right.
stuff. But still, you know, it's an art. They got to know what they're doing.
I like the
Yeah,
slingshot,
it's
but I
art.
feel like it's always just for somebody to bench 4 or 5 and put it on Instagram now.
Yeah, oh,
The
yeah.
You know
slingshots.
what? It's a good training. It's a good training
I like the
thing.
tool, but I'm saying is it used for that? I don't think so. I think it's so everybody can just put that extra
Yeah.
extra plate
Yeah.
on there.
Well,
and
and
pop
Guy
it up.
can't, if guys got bad shoulders and can't bench press, it's good for the protecting your
Yeah.
But
shoulder.
we talked about it too. Is anybody who bench presses any amount of time is going to have that bad shoulder? Period.
I told Lou, I said, these guys benching raw, eventually you're going to tear a pec.
Yeah.
Eventually, your pec's going to tear.
Well, or you're going to get impingement syndrome because
Yeah.
it's just
It's just
natural.
not gonna- it's
that
just the
tendon
way
gets so thick from all that work, it
Yeah.
starts pinching on that bone,
We
and you get that
saw-
impingement
well,
syndrome.
what's his name with the beast that year? Your buddy tore his pec. Comes up all the time.
Chip Armstrong?
Chippy.
Yeah.
Never lifted again, did he?
No.
Hey, snap.
No.
That was it.
No. But I'll bring it back to the Beast a little bit more. So our smallest meet with the Beast was the first year. We had about 24, 29 in there. The biggest one we ever had was 155 lifters. And we had 155 lifters. We started at 10 o'clock in the morning. We were done by 5 o'clock. We ran 2 platforms back then. And we got really smart. We had a platform A, platform B. And I would assign the weight classes to the platforms. I used a male and female announcers. Steve Fishkin was our male announcer, and we always had a female announcing well. So we'd say if you're on platform A, listen for the female's voice. If you're on platform B, listen for the male's voice.
Really smart.
So that way we had them separate.
Yeah.
They were sitting next together because you had your cards coming in.
Yeah.
But we had them separate enough where they wouldn't kill each other with a microphone. So,
and as a competitor, you appreciate that because there's 1,000 things going on through your head. And
yes.
what most promotions get wrong is that announcement
Yes.
of the order on deck, in the hole. Those things matter to a lifter, especially powerlifting.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and we go four.
right?
I go
Here's
four
the thing-
out.
Here's the thing too: the heavier the weight, the bigger the lifter.
Yeah.
The more you
More
better
prep.
have you better have your stuff together because they get mad.
Right.
Because they put a lot of work in. They're going there to move some big weight.
Yeah,
To
they
get
got their
PRs. If you screw up,
Yep.
Well, you've lifted knee wraps. I've wrapped my knees a couple times.
You know.
That goes numb quickly. You know,
Yes.
your calves go numb. You
Yep.
put your
I
briefs on too
can't
tight. You put
tell you
that
how
squat
many
shirt on
times.
too early. You know,
Yep.
you
Yep.
lose your air. You
Can't
know.
tell you how many times I had my wrist wrapped and they started going blue and numb, and
Yeah.
and the bar wasn't
you have
ready.
to know what you're doing. You got to know
Yep.
when to
Right.
do this stuff.
And it's,
But-
it's an art to promoting,
Yes.
Carl. And so that's
Yep.
what to do that for 37 years,
Yeah.
at
And
least.
be successful.
Yeah.
I think we've been very successful.
Right.
But we had 155 lifters. And the way we started getting people into the meets was we started doing some unique things. Like we started the round system.
Mm-hmm.
We started after offering sculptured trophies.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody else was giving sculptured trophies. Everybody's still giving out these bowling trophies.
Yeah.
It's a bowling trophy.
Yeah,
Right.
You thought it was like the coolest thing. Hey, I got a 12-inch
Yeah.
column trophy.
With a
It's
sparkly
just-
column trophy on
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So we would give those out, but if we gave them out, we gave you 3-footers. And
so
then
this is the great thing. So right here, so I'll put this online too.
Yeah.
The video of this. So this was, what year was this? And what was this? Was one of your trophies, the first one.
that one is that one's called the Metal Militia Bencher.
Yeah.
So that one would probably come out in the probably like around 2005, 2006.
Yeah. That's impressive. That was 2002.
Yep.
You got
Okay.
that, yeah. And
Okay.
that's- but your
Yep.
trophies alone are the one that got me interested in it. I'd be like, dude, it was the first one. I found that in my closet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, so those trophies, like you said, are the reason why power.
Yep.
I think it's funny why people want to do your stuff because it's not just guys that want to test
Yep.
themselves. Some guys want that trophy.
Yep.
And the
You want to
sword.
put that in your
How about
gym,
the
you know?
sword?
Yeah, we've given out swords, battle axes, war hammers.
Yeah.
This year I'm giving out sculptures, huge gold cups,
Yeah.
18-inch gold cups, and then I'm also giving out a unique award that I'm not gonna give out till the day of the meet.
Okay.
And everything else, but it's pretty unique with an eagle on it, and it's pretty original.
Right.
So we're doing those this year, but
So if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're a fan. How many people are we allowed to pack in there with COVID? What are the rules for that?
that's
What are
what
we
we're trying
doing?
to figure out.
Right.
Honestly.
So
Yeah, we were just having that discussion.
Okay,
this
so we'll
morning.
think about we'll post that on the Facebook page,
Yep.
Beast and Northeast on Facebook,
Yep.
or look up Carl Seeker, or I'll post it on mine, Iron Mo
Yes.
Pride, or Marty Grove, anybody through there. If you know one of us, you're pretty close to the situation, anyways. So lifter, if you're a lifter, are you looking for guys, or you got a full meet, or how? Like what are classes we can help fill?
Well, this is kind of where we're at with COVID. I'll be brutally honest with you. I was really hesitant to do this because I'm afraid we'll get too big. And I was telling Marty in the past, because I sell the trophies, I don't have to worry about how many people come. I just have access to trophies.
Right.
So in the past, I've only had like 7 or 8 pre-entries. As of today, I have 22.
Right. So
And my walk-ins always are double what I have pre-registered. And with the Beast, it's always more. So like last year's Beast, we had a decent turnout last year. We had 63.
63 lifters?
Last year. Yeah, the year before that, we had about 65, and the year before that, 72, because it was like the 30th year or something.
Right.
So it's grown. But what we kind of did with the Beast, too, is, I'll go back, is when we had the 155, we used to just be bench and deadlift. Well, then we started adding in a division. So I would clump up like 148 and under, an Ironman division. So the top 3 guys with the biggest weights
Right.
got like a special sculpture, bencher, deadlifter, that type of thing. That took off.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't much Ironman around back then. It was just bench deadlift, separate meets. Well, then people started catching on to the Ironman.
Right.
And then we're like, hey, we got something here. So then we started adding it to each weight class, and that's really taken off. So a couple of things that I think like we've been forefront with the Beast is the music.
Right.
And we don't hold back on the music. I mean,
Or the swearing.
no, so bring your earplugs if you're coming to the meet if you don't like loud music, and there is some vulgar music. it's funny. Everybody says like, Carl, you do this rule clinic, and you tell everybody like, you need to watch your goddamn mouths and everything else.
Yeah.
So you're swearing at the rules clinic, but I don't allow it on the platform because I think it's bad sportsmanship.
Right.
So, you can be mad, go outside,
Get fired up, compete,
swear into
right?
your towel,
Yeah.
but it's not the judge's fault. It's nobody's fault that
Right.
it's your fault you missed the lift. Don't be an ass on the platform.
And it only looks bad on lifters when they do that, right?
And
when they
it
get up and say
embarrasses
the F word, it only looks at one.
the sport.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and we respect the sport. Don't,
Yeah.
I'm going to swear a little bit here, but don't fuck up the sport.
Right, yeah.
Take it someplace else. I don't give a shit.
Here's
Right.
the thing with the judging.
You can't scrub everybody.
No.
You can't scrub it. You can't scrub everything down to
No.
just perfectly PC.
No.
the whole
The
way.
judges are
There's
judging.
3 of them.
Right.
The judges are there, and I tell people we're here to see everybody get their lift.
Right.
We don't want you not to get your lift.
Right.
But so we're not trying to screw somebody over. If you don't get a lift, you don't get a lift. Like I've been to a couple squat meets where I didn't have my depth wasn't good enough. Well, I didn't go scream at the judge and say, yes, it was.
Right.
It must not have been deep enough.
Right.
I've never questioned a judge my whole career.
Right.
Never questioned a
Because if they
judge.
gave you a red light or red lights, it must be you didn't get it in. You're
Yeah.
supposed to.
And that's why there's 3 of them.
Exactly, and in
Yeah.
powerlifting, isn't that the first thing everybody does is jump up and look at the lights, right? So
Yeah,
it's
the lights.
yeah, it's it, right?
Got to have 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3, right? And so that's and if you don't get that, then either
There's no reason to bitch. You didn't get it.
Right, exactly. That's as simple as that.
You
which
know
is-
what you gotta work at.
Which isn't that I feel like a very fair, and I like the way you said that, Marty. Is you're there to see people get the lift, which is
We're
what.
not there to see him not get the
Right,
lift.
you want it as a promoter, as a person in the stands. You want to see somebody
had
get the
people
weight.
look at me like-
fails kill everything.
And
Fails
people
kill the
look at
momentum.
you, it's like, what are you crazy? I didn't get that lift.
Yeah.
No, I'm
No
not
gifts.
crazy.
You're right.
No gifts here.
You know what I mean? Your butt came off the bench 2 inches. What do you
Right,
mean?
which is hard to get these guys to stop doing.
Well, and I will tell you a couple other things too. People have said the reason why they like our meets is because if they get a lift at our meet, then they know they got the lift. It was a good lift. It was no bullshit lift.
Right.
So I've had numerous people say, if you got a lift at Carl Seeker's meet,
Right. And I
it
won't
was a
mention any
good lift.
federations, but some federations are known for giving lifts and not
Oh,
doing
yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. And,
Yeah.
and that doesn't that ruin the sport? Doesn't that
oh
kind
yeah,
of
and I'm a
dilutes down everything?
I'm a judge in like 4 of the federations, international judge in 2 or 3 of them, and then for the and I'll say the name of the federation, but for the RPS, I'm the head of the rules clinic,
Right.
And everything else. And you wouldn't believe, like, people will send me videos of squats from the front, and it's like I can't judge the squat from the front.
Yeah.
You can angle that camera any way to make it look like it's good lift.
Or just the way guys are with big hips. It just looks like they don't, if their bone, if their femur doesn't
Yeah.
get down there, they have a big ass,
Yep.
and,
then
it
you
just
got
looks high
guys,
and it's not.
the old bullshit of like dyeing your suit, like your white suit halfway black, so it messes up the judge's eyes and stuff. It's
Right.
like, stop it.
If you're at that level, you're not that strong.
Yes.
If you're at that level, and by the way, RPS, Reichlich Power Systems,
Yeah.
down by Lancaster. So we did a lot of his meets, and
Yep.
we're around a lot of his meets down there in Lancaster 10 years ago.
And you know
so.
what? You brought up Gene Richlack. I'm going to bring up a couple of names like, and we were talking about this earlier, but the way we succeeded is we would go to these meets, and the first meet we went to where we met a big name was we were in a meet down in Punxsutawney, PA, Friday night bench meet.
Mm-hmm.
Outdoors. It was a lot of fun, but we're outside, and there's this gentleman, just a really nice guy, just started a conversation with him, and all of a sudden they say bars loaded for 640. He's like, excuse me, I'll be right back. Didn't warm up. And if he did, we didn't see it because he'd been talking to us for like 20 minutes. So he walks out, benches 640, smokes it, comes back, and then just like, sorry about that. Just the politest guy. His name was Dan Molodenzik out of Buffalo, New York.
Dan Molodenzik.
Yep, strong.
Yeah.
It's like, and he would bench 640 in like an old Inzer, like single ply piece of shit shirt.
Right. Yeah.
But just the nicest guy. So we started meeting these people at these meets, and then we started becoming more and more. Then we
And you
got
meet some characters too. They're funny.
oh gosh, yep.
Instead of just looking at 2 of them.
yeah.
You're looking, the characters are the fun part of the sport, right?